No pressure.
Hey, welcome everyone to the Keystone Contractors Association Building a Strong Workforce Seminar Series. This is the fourth of a four-part series. We're very grateful for our partnership with ProA, who we're going to hear from second. They're going to talk about resources and kind of tie it all together, the four seminars. First, we're going to hear from American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, Samantha Bruno. Talk about AFSP, their resources. We're going to talk about the 2026 Life of Hope. Before we kick it off, just a very special thank you to Benoni in Mechanicsburg. Thank you to Jessica Warren and her team for hosting us and feeding us, allowing us to get together and just educate and help each other. So thank you. Without further ado, take it away, Sam.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. Like John said, I'm Samantha Bruno. I'm the area director for the Eastern Pennsylvania chapter of the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. Our mission is to save lives and bring hope to those affected by suicide. So I'm going to do a short presentation with you today called Talk Saves Lives. It's an introduction to suicide prevention. And then afterwards, I can talk about AFSP or the Hike for Hope or any questions that we have. So AFSP believes that everyone has a role in reducing the risk of suicide. By the end of this presentation, you'll be able to describe the impact of suicide in the construction industry, recognize suicide warning signs, provide examples of how to approach someone you're concerned about, and list ways to seek and offer support and resources to yourself and others. Before we get started, how we talk about mental health and suicide can help reduce stigma and shape whether people feel safe asking for help. Many of us have grown up speaking about suicide as something that people commit. Take a moment and reflect think about what kind of things people commit. The word commit is typically used for crimes and moral wrongdoings, right? Would you ever say someone commits a heart attack or commits cancer? Of course not. People don't commit health issues, and suicide is the same. We invite you to consider how language choices help remind others that suicide is a health issue, while signaling to someone that you aren't going to judge them if they're struggling. Using terms such as died by suicide, ended their life, and suicide attempt can help us capture the idea without implying judgment. It can also be helpful to avoid referring to attempts as successful or failed, which suggests that the person did something wrong or incompetent by surviving, or that their dying was a valid solution to a health crisis. It's also important to avoid sharing graphic details about suicide methods, since this can be activating to those who struggle. We also avoid minimizing suicide to one single cause, since many converging factors play a role in suicide, and we'll talk about that later on in the presentation. When suicide is talked about safely and accurately, we can help reduce judgment and stigma around suicide and encourage people who are at risk to seek help. Suicide is a leading cause of death in the United States. Each year, millions of people think about suicide. There are well over 1 million people in the US each year who survive a suicide attempt. More than half of all suicides are carried out by a firearm. Most people are affected by suicide in some way, shape, or form at some point in their life. The impact of suicide is particularly devastating in the construction industry, where over 5,000 workers die by suicide annually. This represents one of the highest rates of suicide compared to other industries. Every day, we lose about 14 construction workers to preventable deaths, 2 to 3 from job site injuries, and an alarming 12 by suicide. Construction workers account for over 12% of all suicide deaths in the United States. Further, for every suicide death, there are 33 other people who attempt suicide. That's 522 attempts per day in the construction industry alone, equal to 1 attempt every 3 minutes. Over 50% of all firearm deaths in the United States are suicides, and more than half of all suicides involve a firearm. We'll discuss strategies to secure firearms in ways that prevent suicide during this presentation. These staggering figures underscore the need for early intervention and support, challenging us to not only recognize the scope of the problem, but to commit to creating a culture that values mental health as much as physical safety on and off the job site. Suicide rates among males are generally higher compared to females across all industries. In the construction industry, male suicide rates are twice as high compared to males in all industries, though still lower to those in the mining industry. The line across the slide, across the graph, shows the average suicide rates for the working male population, and then you can see the construction in the green. When someone dies by suicide, people may assume that a life event or life stressors like losing a job or a bad breakup, and assume that the life event caused the suicide. However, that's not how it works. We've learned through research that suicide is complex. It never comes down to one event or one cause. There are usually many interacting factors that come into play, and the context looks different for each person. So risk factors are things that can make someone more vulnerable to suicide over time, like changes in mental health, substance abuse, past trauma, or chronic health conditions. They don't cause suicide on their own, but they can add up and factor into someone's overall risk. Even though people may have various risk factors, most people will never act on thoughts of suicide. This is because protective factors are also present, and most of the factors are dynamic and always changing in a person. While the construction workers are vulnerable to the same risk factors for suicide as others in the general population, there are risk factors that may be unique to the construction industry, including a workplace culture that encourages bravery, stoicism, or self-sufficiency. Those in labor-heavy positions can experience chronic physical pain or injury that may lead to a prescription of pain medication. Pain can interfere with job performance, job security, sleep, and mood. This increase in exposure to access to pain medications can increase risk for substance misuse and addiction. Construction work sometimes involves cyclical work with regular periods of layoffs and rehiring. This may cause uncertainty about employment, financial stress, and loss of access to insurance and other employee health and mental health benefits. Additionally, working long or abnormal hours is common for many in the construction industry. Construction sites that include access to bridges and buildings can increase a person's risk for suicide, particularly during a crisis period. Creating a work environment that fosters communication, a sense of belonging and connectedness, and respect can help protect against suicide risk. Peer support and access to mental health care are also important ways to reduce suicide risk and maintain resilience. Protective factors are things that protect against suicide. These things include things like social support, engaging in mental health care, and problem-solving skills, strong relationships, and a sense of purpose. The more protective factors someone has, the more support they have to get through difficult times. So during a suicidal crisis may occur when a person with underlying risk factors for suicide experiences stressors that feel overwhelming or unsolvable. In the moment, cognitive changes create tunnel vision and intense hopelessness that can increase a person's suicide risk. During that brief period of crisis, brain functioning can cause some people to be less able to consider other options or use their coping skills. They cannot foresee a time when the unbearable pain will end and may become focused on suicide as the only way to end their pain. So it's not necessarily that they want to die, it's that they're having tunnel vision, other options seem unavailable, and they can't figure out another way to end their pain. Keep in mind that thoughts of suicide are complex, and each person has their own path to feeling suicidal or attempting suicide. We've learned that most people who experience suicidal behaviors are ambivalent about taking their life. That means that part of them wants to live, but part of them wants to end their pain. The thought of ending their life is usually part of their mind's problem-solving process. They may think that if they weren't around, it would be better for their family or friends. Some may feel that their psychological or physical pain or feeling of being trapped won't change, and they may feel overwhelmed with hopelessness. It's also important to remember, if someone is experiencing suicidal crisis, that thoughts of suicide are often temporary. This is why keeping people safe and supported is key, and we're going to talk about how to do that. So just like with other health issues, we can take steps to prevent suicide. For example, let's talk about heart disease. We know that reducing things like smoking can lower a person's risk, while promoting health behaviors like exercising and eating healthy can protect against it. The same is true with suicide. We can work to reduce the risk factors we mentioned, while at the same time building up protective factors. In the next few slides, we'll learn about the importance of watching for warning signs, reaching out to someone you're concerned about, and having a brave conversation, helping individuals make their environment safer, and knowing what resources are available for yourself and others. So step one in suicide prevention is to watch out for the warning signs. We talked earlier about risk factors, which are different from warning signs. Warning signs are observable signs that someone may be suicidal. Think about the example of a heart attack. High blood pressure or high cholesterol are risk factors that may increase a person's risk of heart attack. Chest pain is a warning sign because it signals that a heart attack is happening. Suicide warning signs are typically displayed in three main ways: talk, behavior, and mood. Talk. Many people are surprised to learn that those who experience suicidal ideation often talk about it. It's important to listen for comments like having no reason to live, being burdensome, feeling trapped, or being in unbearable pain. Sometimes people speak about ending their life in a joking manner. I encourage you to take those comments seriously and use them as an opportunity to open up a conversation with that person. Behavior. If you notice someone acting differently than usual, speak to that person about what you are noticing. You may see increased alcohol or drug use. They may have trouble sleeping, either too much or too little. They might start acting recklessly. They might withdraw from activities, especially ones you know they normally really enjoy. They might isolate themselves from family and friends. They might look for a way to kill themselves, such as searching online for methods or shopping for a firearm. They may give away prized possessions or exhibit reckless spending. No matter what it is, the most important thing is to look for a change from a person's typical behavior. So anything that raises that flag in your mind, like this is not normally them. And mood. People at risk for suicide can display, and often quite subtly, any of the following moods: depression, anxiety, apathy, rage, irritability, impulsivity, humiliation. Moods someone would expect for someone who feels overwhelmed or desperate. Obviously, we all have our ups and downs, but when you notice a change that seems uncharacteristic or concerning to you, it's important to speak to that person about what you are noticing. For example, sudden unexplained happiness and an upbeat mood during a period of depression in a person can indicate that the individual has decided on a plan and is relieved they will no longer be in pain. Remember, it never hurts to trust your gut and start a conversation about how someone is doing. The second step to preventing suicide involves having a conversation. It's important to have a caring, supportive conversation with someone you are worried about. Don't assume that someone else will reach out to them. If you notice warning signs, you should start the conversation. First, avoid minimizing their feelings. Second, avoid getting into debates about life being worth living. If a person is nearing a crisis point, philosophical debates about life being worth living tend to not be helpful. Avoid offering advice to fix it. If a person was having a heart attack in front of you, you wouldn't be like, wow, you really need to start exercising and eat a healthier diet, right? You would call 911, you would get them help. And the same is true for someone in mental health distress. Lastly, as a peer or a colleague, it's not your role to diagnose or provide mental health services. Encourage the person to connect with available resources or mental health support. If they are in crisis, what they need is to be heard and connected to professional help. So some tips. Remember to speak to the person in private. These can be difficult conversations, so find a place to have this conversation in as private a setting as possible so they're not worried about others overhearing it. Start the conversation with an expression of care, followed by an observation, and let them know that you care and you're not going to judge them. We'll go over some specific examples. Now that you've started the conversation, listen with empathy. Active listening shows you care and allows you to gain more information about their level of distress. Ask open-ended questions to encourage the person to share with you. Be aware of your words and body language and listen for warning signs. Remember, everyone's experiences are different, and what impacts one person may not affect someone else the same way. Here are some examples of active listening that show you care while allowing you to keep the conversation going and gaining more information about what's going on. How has that made you feel? I hear you and I'm here for you. That sounds really hard. I'm sorry you're dealing with so much. Are you having a hard time with that? I care about you and want you to be safe. I see that. I want to help you find the help you need. While some people worry that asking someone about suicide will put the idea in their head and push them to action, research shows us that that is not true. If you think someone is considering suicide, trust your instinct and ask them directly about it. Are you thinking of ending your life? Are you thinking about suicide? It's very important to ask the question directly. Once you directly ask about suicide, continue to listen and provide support. If they tell you they are not thinking about suicide but are struggling with their mental health or going through a hard time, you might say something like, I'm sorry you're hurting so much. I care about you and want you to be safe. I want to help you find the help you need. If someone tells you they are thinking about suicide, stay calm. Just because someone is having thoughts of suicide, it doesn't mean they're in immediate danger. Take time to calmly listen to what they have to say and ask some follow-up questions to learn more. Do you have a plan to end your life? Do you have a method? Is that available to you? Can you give that to me or someone until you get through this difficult time? I want to be here and will help you. Make sure to avoid saying things like you have so much to live for and think about what that would do to your spouse, your kids, friends, etc. As we mentioned earlier, people nearing a crisis point are not thinking clearly, and these phrases are not helpful. Instead, reassure them that help is available and that these feelings are a signal that it's time to talk to a mental health professional. If you think they might make a suicide attempt soon, try to stay with them and help remove any lethal means. You may escort them to mental health services or an emergency room. If your own safety feels at risk, leave the area immediately and call 911. To close the conversation, reiterate that you are so glad for the chance to connect on this deeper level. Remind them that we all have challenges at times and that you'll continue to be there for them. But don't just leave it at that. Let them know you'll stay in touch and then follow up with them. Some examples would be, thank you for sharing with me. Do you want me to help you call a mental health provider tomorrow during our lunch break? You know, you've been on my mind since that conversation the other day. How are you doing? I've really been thinking about what we talked about and I want to circle back. How are you feeling since we spoke? And step 3 in suicide prevention is taking steps to make the environment safer. The most important thing you can put between a person thinking about suicide and their way of ending their life is time and distance. Research provides clear evidence that in a moment of crisis, time and distance can be life-saving. Time for their intense suicidal crisis to diminish, and distance between the individual who is experiencing the painful moment and their method of ending their life. Even before someone reaches a crisis point, keeping the environment safe is a great way to proactively reduce suicide risk. Whether we're talking about firearms or other methods commonly used in suicide, there are strategies we can use to make the environment safer, especially for those in the home environment. And this is a proven strategy that works to prevent suicide. For most people in suicidal crisis, if they are unable to access their chosen method, even temporarily, they are unlikely to choose an alternate means to end their life. That was something that I learned when I started this work. So if their environment is safe and there are no methods available for them, they will get through that suicidal crisis. They will not, in most cases, substitute. During a period of high risk, the safer their environment is, the better chance a person experiencing a suicidal crisis has of living through that crisis period. For firearms, including decorative firearms, strategies for secure storage are to lock, limit, or temporarily remove. Before locking firearms in a safe, ensure that they're all unloaded and disassembled. A trusted person can change the lock or combination, or use a cable lock and give a trusted person the key to temporarily hold. The strategy that has proven most effective at saving lives is to temporarily remove firearms from the home. Consider giving the firearm or non-regulated components to a trusted person that can securely store them. Please keep in mind that laws regarding firearm transfers might vary from state to state. Other ways to restrict lethal means are to secure medications, including over-the-counter medications and toxic substances. You may also ask the person you are concerned about what they need to feel safer. Encourage them to refrain from substance use and encourage them to discuss keeping the environment safe with a mental health professional. The fourth and final step to preventing suicide is connecting an individual to resources. If someone has a suicide plan or is in crisis and not safe, take immediate action. 988 is the National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. 988 provides free and confidential emotional support to people in suicidal crisis or emotional distress 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It is comprised of a national network of over 200 local crisis centers, combining custom local care and resources with national standards and best practices. You can also call on behalf of someone, and a trained counselor will provide you guidance about what you can do to help the person in distress. In addition to phone access, 988 also provides text and chat options with specialty guidance for veterans and in Spanish. If you or the person you're concerned about do not feel comfortable speaking to a counselor on the phone, another option is to text 988 or the crisis text line at 741-741, either in English or Spanish. The crisis text line provides free 24/7 high-quality text-based mental health support and crisis intervention by a community of trained volunteers. 988 also offers options for individuals who are deaf or hard of hearing through text, online chat, or video phone. If there's a medical emergency or life-threatening situation, such as a suicide attempt in progress, call 911. While 911 can be life-saving, it may not be the best choice if you don't want law enforcement to respond. So just something to keep in mind. Know that even if you convey a lot of information to dispatch, it might not get passed on to the responding officers, so be prepared to re-explain when help arrives on site. One alternative to 911 in many communities is mobile crisis response teams. Calls are responded to on site by licensed mental health professionals with the goal of preventing a crisis from becoming an emergency and referring the client to mental health resources. So AFSP has started Hard Hat Courage. Hard Hat Courage was founded in partnership by the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention and Bechtel, a trusted global engineering, construction, and project management partner to confront high rates of suicide in the construction industry by equipping construction workers with evidence-informed suicide prevention tools and free planning. Hard Hat Courage empowers the construction industry to prioritize mental health just as much as physical safety. Hardhatcourage.com is the website, and there's a lot of really good information on there. So the takeaway from today's presentation is that we all have a role to play in suicide prevention and in building a culture that promotes taking care of our mental health. That is a survey. If you are interested in AFSP in general, it's at AFSP National, all of the social media platforms, but afsp.org is our website. And there's a ton of information on there about resources. If you're worried about somebody, if you're worried about yourself, if you've lost someone to suicide, looking out for information on teens or children, anything like that, there's a lot of information out there. And then hardhatcourage.com is the website specifically for the construction industry. Do you want me to talk about the Hike for Hope too?
Yeah, you want to?
Yeah, or you can.
We both can.
Okay. Yeah. So we have our Pennsylvania Construction Hike for Hope on May 16th at Memorial Lake State Park. We'll be there in the morning. Oh, yeah, little stickers. We hope that everybody can join us. It's free to participate, but we just want people to come out and have a great time with your family, with your friends, but also to, bring attention to this important cause because suicide is so prevalent in the construction industry. We want to make sure that we're supporting people, that we're giving people resources. Those are cool. I do have like wallet cards with the information on the table as well as stickers.
Cool. So this will be year 2 of the Pennsylvania Construction Hike for Hope. And we intentionally left the year off the token when we got these last year so we could use them until they run out. And I grabbed just the right amount because some of them weren't printed properly. So we have, if anyone online or whatever needs them, we can ship you some. I have more at the office. But the QR code on the back is the 988 website.
Oh, wonderful.
So, when we had the last year made, we weren't sure what the website would be. So we had to put something on there. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's perfect.
Yeah, so it's May 16th. We have 2 hikes, one in Pittsburgh, Settlers Ridge Cabin, and then the Eastern PA one will be in Lebanon County. And hopefully each of your companies get a team. I hear Panoni's probably going to get a team, so that's awesome. If you're looking for a team, join KCA, Team KCA. We'd love to have you up here. Second year, and it's bigger and better. So
yeah.
We hope you can join us.
And we're going to have beautiful weather.
Yes. This year,
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks. Any questions?
Any questions?
And for those people online, the way it was set up is I spotlighted my laptop and Jessica's laptop, so you could see the presentation, and then a small little video of the speaker. And from people I heard from, it's working properly. One person, I guess, is having issues. You got it? Okay. I think she unhighlighted one. That must have. Oh, yeah. But it's all good now. So, okay. So now, ProA, who came to the KCA and said we have this great idea for this seminar series. We've been following your lead all year, so this is awesome. Part 4 of 4. I think Christine's gonna drive the ship here and take it over.
So while I get all set up, I'm going to ask you guys online to scan the QR code. It is going to take us to our pre-test. We just want to see what aspects you guys are aware of. Please fill out the top of it. And the people in person, you guys all have a survey in front of you. So if you guys could please fill that out. I'm going to give you guys a moment. So while you guys take a moment, I'll introduce myself. My name is Christina Grouzis. I work at Pennsylvania's Recovery Organization Alliance. We are the statewide recovery community organization for Pennsylvania. So when you guys are done, just look up at me. While you guys finish that up, I'll introduce our team. Like I said, my name is Christina Grouzis. I'll be the one presenting today. We have our executive director. We have our executive director, Bill Stauffer. We have Patty B, who is our ProA Works Program Director. She should be on live today. We have Nikki Weir, who's right over here. She is our ProA Works Program Coordinator. And then I'm our ProA Works Peer Recovery Support Specialist. Other way. Okay. ProA, so a little bit about us. We are one of the first recovery community organizations in the nation. We were actually found in 1998. Our mission is to mobilize, educate, and advocate in order to eliminate the stigma by substance use and discrimination towards those affected by substance use disorders to ensure hope, health, and justice for individuals, families, and those in recovery. So at the end of this presentation, you'll be able to identify emergency, crisis, and immediate support, recognize the signs of overdose, how to utilize Narcan or naloxone, navigate treatment and recovery resources, and apply workplace support strategies. So I have an icebreaker for you guys. The most important question, who is somebody you respect and why? So my example would be my grandfather. He worked in the trades industry. He came from no money and he built his business himself, and he was able to run a very successful business while also taking care of his own mental health. So a lot of that is time, reliability, honesty, and showing up. That's what recovery could look like as well. Does anybody else want to share who somebody they respect is? Nikki, you wanna share?
Sure. I would say my mother, only because she always was like the strongest person that I knew. She got sick and never complained, and she just always had a positive attitude, and I feel like that was ingrained in me growing up and through life.
It's really nice. Thank you for sharing, Nikki. Employment and addiction. Most people with substance use disorder work, yet adults with substance use disorder are twice as likely to be unemployed. It's 9% versus 5%. We have 75 of individuals that have substance use disorder. We have 60 that have pain med use disorder and 78 that have alcohol use disorder. Basic resources we have for you guys. So we're going to be giving you a lot of resources today. Please feel free to take a photo. We'll send out the presentation as well if you guys want to grab the information off there for the individuals that are online. The mental health crisis line, 1-800-273-8255. This provides urgent needs and direction to help in every area of the state. A text option is also available, offering free 24/7 support by texting PA to 741-741 with a trained crisis counselor to support people in crisis. The National Suicide Prevention Line. We have a number available, or you can just call 988 from anywhere in PA. We have drug and alcohol treatment. If you need assistance in finding a treatment provider or funding for addiction treatment, you can call 1-800-622-HELP or contact your local drug and alcohol office. Some of your workplace resources, often people that you already know. Your manager, supervisor, foreman, your safety committee member, human resources, your EAP, that's employee assistance program, your member services, your allied trades assistance program, your primary insurance provider, and peer workers. Crisis and safety, once again, you can text 988 from anywhere in the US. That's our crisis text line. Contact and crisis intervention. So we never want to assume that if an individual tells us that they're going to harm themselves or somebody else, that they won't. I know that she talked about this a little prior. We're just going to highlight some of the different things. So we want to treat every suicidal or homicidal statement as the truth. This could be suicidal or homicidal thoughts, articulates a wish to die, articulates a plan for suicide or homicide, access to means to suicide, or statements about a plan to harm oneself or somebody else. When do we call 911? We have to act right away when there's loss of consciousness after taking drugs, loss of consciousness after drinking alcohol, seizures, shock, or unconsciousness, considering suicide while under the influence, severe withdrawal symptoms, or upon administration of Narcan or naloxone. So if there's two of you, one should be providing Narcan or naloxone, the other individual should be calling 911. Signs of overdose, knowing the signs can save a life. It's a low pulse rate, abnormal breathing, skin temperature hot and dry or cool and clammy. Fingernails and lips might turn bluish or purplish. The skin color grays and ashen. Possible seizures or nausea and vomiting. Steps to take if you suspect an overdose. So the picture that's on there is the recovery position. We'll talk a little bit about that. So it might be hard to tell whether a person is high or experiencing an overdose. If you aren't sure, we always want to treat it like an overdose. We could save a life. So we want to administer an overdose reversal medication like naloxone. Some of us know it as Narcan. It's a life-saving medication that can reverse the effects of opioid overdose, and it can save lives. It's available in all 50 states, over the counter. You don't need a prescription, and we have them with us today if you guys want any. We want to call 911. We want to try to keep the person awake and breathing, lay the person on their side to prevent choking in that recovery position that's listed. And we want to stay with the person until emergency assistance arrives. So we're going to watch a video on how to administer Narcan. So we want to carefully remove the naloxone, hold the nasal spray, tilt your head back, place the tip of the nasal spray in either nostril until your fingers are touching your nose. Firmly press the plunger to release the entire dose of medication. Wait 2 to 3 minutes for the person to respond. If no response, try switching nostrils, giving an additional dose. Does anybody have any questions about that?
Is one, does that just have one use in it? Like if you needed another dose, you'd have to get another one.
In the kits that we have, there's 2
Okay.
doses.
Mhm.
Yep.
Still depending.
That's a good question. And oftentimes some people have questions about if your Narcan is expired, should you use it? It's better for them to have Narcan than no Narcan at all. We want to wait 2 to 3 minutes, and if that doesn't work, we want to give them an additional dose. No.
ACA members, you can get free Narcan.
Great.
Throughout the state.
Thank you. So treatment for individuals with substance use disorder, there's a variety of them. We have hospitalization. This is when it's medically necessary to stabilize a client. This could be from an overdose, an accident, a suicide attempt. We have detoxification, also known as detox. It's medically monitored, medically managed. We have rehabilitation. There's short-term and long-term. There's medical and dual diagnosis. A halfway house, that's an inpatient 60 to 90 days. We have partial hospitalization, that's 5 days weekly, 2 groups a day, 1 or 2 individual. Intensive outpatient, 3 to 4 groups, 1 individual weekly. And we have an outpatient, which is 0 to 2 groups, 1 individual weekly. Just kidding. Online resources. So take a picture. You do not need to memorize this. Steal this off the presentation later. You are more than welcome to use it. Resources for employers supporting individuals with substance use disorder. The Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, Keystone Contractors Association, shout out to you guys. National Safety Council, resources for safety to include safety observance calendar, and digital health man therapy. Some additional helpful resources. We have SAMHSA to learn about substances. SAMHSA's Screen for Success app, Centers for Disease Control and Prevention to check your drinking. So for all of the links that are available on this presentation, you guys can access it that way. We also have a resource sheet that Nikki printed out for you guys that has a QR at the top right, so you guys can access these links as well. We have SAMHSA's Overdose Prevention and Response Toolkit, the ADA National Network, Pathways to Pardon, Tobacco Recovery, and Early Recognition and Effective Treatment of Serious Mental Illness. Community resources. So supports exist both inside and outside the workplace. We have family members, the county crisis line, county drug and alcohol commissions, your primary care physician, counselors, therapists, psychologists, the hospital, recovery community organizations like ProA, drop-in centers, and faith-based organizations. Here are some of the resources that are available to our individuals in recovery. We have 12-step support. It's a calendar of online meetings at various different recovery-related websites. Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, Cocaine Anonymous, In the Rooms, which is an online recovery meeting. It's a global online community where people share their strength and experience with one another daily. We have the Phoenix, Reddit Recovery, Refuge, Smart Recovery, Sober City. We have a bunch of things available, a bunch of supports available for anybody that may be struggling. Some family resources. We have Adult Children of Alcoholics. This is a program of men and women who grew up in a dysfunctional home that provides a safe, non-judgmental environment with online, telephone, and audio support. Another family resource is, you guys might have saw at the end of my name, I have CFRS, which means I'm a certified family recovery specialist. So I am able to assist individuals that have a family or loved one that is struggling with substances. The family members have their own recovery process. So these are the services that are available and out there for them. We also have parents of addicted loved ones, the Pennsylvania Department of Drug and Alcohol programs, Smart Recovery Families and Friends, ProA, and SAMHSA. The Department of Drug and Alcohol programs, also known as DDAP, creates a one-page flyer that we can easily download and print to share with families, loved ones, and caregivers, post in offices, waiting areas, and community spaces, and to include in newsletters, emails, and resource packets. They also have trainings available on their website. Know your legislative rights. So we're going to talk about some of your legislative rights that might protect you. Americans with Disabilities Act. This is the federal courts that ruled that individuals in recovery from alcohol use disorder or substance use disorder, including those in methadone treatment, are covered by the law definition of individuals with a disability. This act forbids employers from discrimination against job applicants because of an alcohol use disorder or substance use disorder or in treatment for it. We have the Mental Health Parity and Addiction Equity Act. This is the Mental Health and Parity and Addiction Equity Act. It requires many insurance plans that cover mental health or substance use disorders to offer coverage for those services. Then we have the Affordable Care Act of 2010. The ACA includes substance use disorders as one of the 10 elements of essential health benefits. That means that all health insurance sold on health insurance exchanges or provided by Medicaid to certain newly eligible adults starting in 2014 must include services for individuals with substance use disorder. Wise investment. Substance use treatment is a wise investment and it yields excellent returns. Treatment. It decreases in criminal behavior, healthcare costs, out-of-home placement for children, and premature death. Recovery. It provides productive functioning in family, workplace, and community. Some facts about individuals that are in recovery. We make great employees. We are most likely to show up and stay dedicated to our employers. Workers in recovery and workers who report receiving substance use treatment at some time in the past who have not had substance use within the last 12 months miss the fewest days of any other group. So I'm going to repeat that. The fewest days of any other group. We are less likely than even the general workforce to miss work days, 9.5 days for workers in recovery, and 10.5 days for anybody else. Workers in recovery are the group least likely to leave their employers, and our turnover rate is much lower than workers with untreated substance use, and even lower than peers with no substance use disorder. So that's 21% versus 25%. This is how you guys will be able to reach us. We have ProA.org, that's our website, and 8929. References for this PowerPoint. And I'm going to ask you guys to scan the QR code at the top to take your post tests. Thank you guys for having us today. Is there any questions? I'm sorry. To the back stack.
Questions, comments, open discussion?
Well, our information is still going to be available to you guys in case anything comes up, or if you have any family members that struggle, or maybe you or a family member needs some support, you guys can give us a call. No, I'm so sorry. So we have Narcan available on this table if anybody needs it.
Everybody needs it.
Yeah.
Take it up when everyone-
We also, supply, John, you said something about Narcan. Do you guys have like Narcan at KCA?
Yeah, the state, whenever we need it, they give us.
Okay, could we also have bulk of it? So if anyone ever needs it, we can give you a card, and if you call, we can either bring it to you or meet you wherever, how much ever you guys need. Yeah. Yeah, we always have a supply too. We're coming to the whole for her.
Would you want to have it, the Japanese slots?
What was that?
I wanted yours for.
Oh. Yeah. I'll email you because then you push them.
I mean, no pressure, because I know it's a lot of work to make it to them.
Yeah, no,
If you want.
Yeah.
If we have like various nonprofit community school,
Okay.
so that people like know what help is out there.
yeah.
What do you think, Marcus?
What's that?
What do we think?
Life can be great. Life can be, a lot of people to, our thoughts too. We got touch base on them. A lot of children were
Like an hour.
cutting on and stuff like that. I still have my younger daughter that deals with depression issues, so.
You guys don't have that.
Hopefully this conversation, this type of conversation in my heart. Had a lot of friends died of suicide. Had a people kill himself, shot himself with a shotgun. My mother's tried it a couple times. I definitely think that it's hereditary.
Yeah, there's a genetic component.
I think another thing that maybe wasn't touched on in here was I noticed that people with depression like to sleep. It's a way of escape, just not dealing with the real world reality. Because we all know sometimes sucks.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I'm glad that there's programs available for everyone. I'm here to learn about them and how to sharpen my skills and hone in on ways that I can help deal with people, starting with my parents.
We call this our wallet guide, so it has all the resources in here that fits in your wallet, so you can keep it with you.
I think it's just really, again, John and I talked to a few people in this room, but just continuing to have the conversation and continuing to normalize the conversation around mental health and mental health awareness and suicide prevention and sort of taking away the shame and the judgment and all those other words that we sort of put on top of those things. And if we could just continue to talk about it in a little bit, I don't want to say like matter of fact, because that feels unfeeling, but if we can just talk about it the way that you would talk about, if you're diabetic, you need to take care of yourself. If you're having thoughts of suicide, you need to take care of yourself. We just have to, be open and have a conversation. And I think, again, shout out to KCA and ProA, but like these conversations need to happen, routinely, regularly, sharing the resources, and really just being yeah, just being open and having a conversation, and I think that's really the only way we're going to continue to move the needle. And a big shout out to AFSP. I'm a big fan for all the walks, and obviously the Hike for Hope is awesome, but out of the darkness walks are also great, and very easy and very family friendly, and really just a nice way to if you don't know what to do, but you want to do something, that's another great sort of easy way to move the needle a little bit. So yeah, thank you. And I was just going to say the stat on folks in recovery being more reliable is a lovely stat. Again, I think is things we need to talk about and things we need to share. So
I will tell you, for someone who, so I do, I've done all the trainings and done all the things. Highly, highly recommend going to a mental health first aid training. There's an exercise that you do there that is very powerful. And it's, you sit there and you have someone who has like basically a paper towel roll, and they're speaking into your ear while you're trying to have a conversation with somebody else. They've seen that the research, though, while they originally thought that was what a paranoid schizophrenic felt like, they are doing more research now saying that that is the thoughts that people start to have as they're starting to have these questions about anxiety, depression, and leading towards a suicidal episode, because there's something in their head that's telling them something that's not what's happening in front of them. And so being able to have that kind of thought process and seeing some of the different engagement strategies that they try to help you with at a very granular level. Nobody has to be the expert. It just is being able to show up. And so I do it every single year. I go out, I do a full day training with it. I go to multiple different places because every trainer is different. But it's just continuing to be able to educate yourself is the best way to be able to figure out a way forward.
I definitely noticed that having conversations about it, like Jesse was saying, that it breaks down the whole stigma of, it's not just isolated to just me. A lot of people dealing with, not only depression and suicidal thoughts, but sometimes that leads to alcoholism and drug use. So the things are kind of interconnected, as we touched base on before. When I first found out about my children, cutting themselves, I couldn't be fathomed, like, why? I grew up in the inner city of Harrisburg. I was running home from bullies and straight off to the streets that I wanted to live so bad that I just never, thought that life could be so bad that it would make you want to do that, hurt yourself to relieve pain. The two and two didn't add up for me. And then on top of that, I felt like I was doing something wrong. And it makes you feel like, what am I not doing, or what am I doing that's making my children go through this? And it shut me down for a lot of years where I kind of didn't want to deal with it. And the more it kept happening, I realized this isn't going to go away. And like I said, my daughter's in her 20s now, still has some issues, and I pray. Try to be there as much as I can. Sometimes it's financially, sometimes it's just being there.
it's all
It's everything. But
again, like
I tried the tough route,
to your point, right? Though, if we talked about this, right? I mean, you can't if we don't. Some of you never know this, but I ran a small school in Princeton, New Jersey for essentially a fair amount of kids who were neurodivergent and or had mental health issues and or were in like IOPs and intensive outpatient programs and all these other things. And I would have parents say to me, I don't know who I'm supposed to talk to about this because no one is going through what I'm going through. And in reality, like in the grocery store aisle, half of the people in that grocery store aisle are going through what you're going through. But if we don't talk about it, nobody knows that you're going through it, right? So when we talk about, when I say talking about it, right, it's not just talking about the resources that are available, but it is the hard sharing of, yes, we did this, and this is, you know, yes, we've experienced that, and yes, it is hard. And you do that in other things in life, right? If somebody like goes through something difficult in their life, they're more than willing to share that experience so that someone else can learn. And so I think this creating these conversations and creating these spaces, because there is this sense of isolation, which again, now you've got like caregiver, right? Parenting concerns and issues that are at the forefront, and that's not helpful. And now I can't do all the things I'm supposed to do, including going to work every day, right? Pretend that everything is okay and be safe at work and all of these other things. And so, like, yeah, just the really sort of open and honest conversations, they're super important. And honestly, they get easier. You know, the more it's never going to be easy, and it shouldn't be, but it's really, really important. And, you know, finding little spaces to have those conversations with folks, I think is really important, because it was always crazy to me. They would say, like, I don't know who I'm supposed to talk to. And I'm like, well, I'm sort of a stranger. You can talk to me, but like you could also, I promise you, talk to all these other people that you think you can, because odds are they're going through something, maybe not the same, but certainly something similar. So
Yeah, people are afraid to open up, but as soon as you do, they're like, oh, me
It's like
too.
a floodgate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what it's like you said, everybody's experiencing it in some way, shape, or form. There just needs to be no shame sharing it. Like I said, it's the stigma, and the more we openly share, the more we can.
everybody will tell you how to potty train your kid, right?
Yeah.
How to make your, you know, toddler school ready, right? Nobody's telling you how to keep your like middle school or high school ready from an emotional standpoint, right? It's kind of right. These are like, they're just like all the same things. We need to just just lay it out there. It is messy, but life is messy and lovely. So
Well, we don't like that people know that we got problems.
Yeah.
You know?
yeah, we're cute.
So, we get all dressed up for work. And, we try to put this persona that, right, we got it all together. I'm okay. But, like, then you realize, hey, my neighbors go through the same thing. Or person, their children are doing the same thing. It's not isolated. But
everybody worries about what everybody else thinks. And then that you have that shame and stigma, and the individual that's going through it also has that guilt and shame. I'm in recovery, so I know what it's like on the other side of the using and trying to get clean and sober and thinking that you're not going to drink anymore or drug, and I'll do it on my own because I can't let anybody know, and again, all those thoughts, plus them thinking my parents. And when everybody's sitting here talking, like when I first got clean and sober and went to AA meeting and heard bits and pieces of my story in there, because I thought everybody would do the same thing that I was doing if they lived the life I did. But then to hear bits and pieces of the story, it's sort of like being the parent and hearing other people be like, oh my gosh, having those resources. And I also feel like, because my parents were the older generation, I mean, I'm going to be 60. So my dad is 90 now. And I feel like then that was what happened in your house stayed in your house. Like you weren't allowed to tell anybody, because I know when I first got clean and sober, my mom was like, well, we're not going to tell anybody this, and I started like putting it, Facebook came out and I started putting on Facebook, and she's like, you shouldn't tell anybody. And I've had more people reach out to me because of doing that, and she realized that then, because then people would ask her about it. So it's having the conversations all around. And I think this is one of the reasons we got the grant for the construction, because it is the highest rate of suicide or substance use out of everything. So again, being able to educate people that, we're not bad people. And there's a lot of people that are already working in the construction company that you don't even know about, that have the substance use and they're active, let alone people coming to you and saying, hey, I really need help. So it's weird. It's, it just all needs to get out there.
Just wanted to say how much I respect what you have mentioned in the story that you shared, because he said that he didn't know what to do with it and he wanted to run away and not deal with it. And instead, he worked his way to come to this meeting today to talk about it, and everything that happened before that. And it's such a scary thing to sometimes share about your experience. So I want to thank you for that.
Thank you, I appreciate that. It's definitely like a maturation process. I can't say that I would have come to something like this when this was at the peak. My children were in their teens, because I didn't talk about it. But it's the evolution of the years and years, and just hearing the like-minded stories of people going through same difficult scenarios and pain. That just helps to be able to even talk about it, or to come to something like this. As the pain gets easier for them, it gets easier for me too. So I think we're all in a healing process, and
Learning every day, right?
yeah.
And you don't know the amount of people that you helped today just by sharing that story. So thank you.
I didn't come here to help anybody. I couldn't help myself. Yeah.
We are just a little bit more open and honest, and we could just share in little tiny spaces, and like to one, right? Not even in a big space like this. If one person talks to one person in a conversation, in a way, in a helpful tone, in a concerned tone, in a non-judgmental way, like that's huge. And so just those, it doesn't have to be these big grand efforts and these big grand projections and proclamations and programs. And I mean, all those things are very lovely, but if you can just like on the one-to-one small scale, right? As a foreman, as a manager, as a leader, as a parent, like as a partner, how do you show up for that? As a teacher, whatever it is, right? How do you show up in that, that one little space? Because it is additive, it is helpful, it is all of those things. And as you mentioned, right, all of these things are comorbid, right? So the drug and alcohol and anxiety and depression and like so many other there's things, ADHD, learning issues, like anxiety, school avoidance, like it's a gigantic, right? There, and you have to you got to start peeling the onion somewhere, right? So like being willing to have that conversation in any way, I think is always helpful. So, and I think we probably again get worried about how we'll show up in offering that conversation or asking the question. And then how does and we're like prejudging ourselves for even wanting to have the conversation.
I think, if I may, I think men kind of have their own stereotypes.
Really?
Yeah. It's supposed to be tough and handle this kind of stuff. And we're not supposed to talk. And like you said, the generation before us, man, they didn't talk about nothing. I remember my grandfather would sit on his lazy boy and with his feet up and not really talk much at all. So we knew that he loved us as grandchildren or as grandfather, but we just didn't hear it, and it was just that lack of communication and kind of just keeping everything isolated and internally. And don't get me wrong, I'm a tough guy. Okay? I'm a tough guy, but I'm not so tough that I care what you think about that. I can't learn or evolve or be a new person tomorrow or a better person tomorrow. So that's what this is about.
I think it's important too. So, you're sharing some of this stuff, and especially different genders. So I have different kind of, but my stepdad is a very stoic man, very much like, the quiet observer in the back of the room, doesn't really communicate, doesn't really have a lot of those kind of open, warm and fuzzy kind of things. And so he called me probably about, I want to say early January, and said he needed me. Thought this was odd. This man has been in my life for 20 years. I never knew him to ever say that to me. And he said he needed to have a conversation with someone who would help him because a coworker of his walked into his office, asked him for a tool that he had, and then went out to his truck and used that tool to commit suicide.
Oh,
And so this is a man who didn't know and didn't ask, had this gut feeling. Well, why are you need to, aren't you supposed to be like, but didn't think enough of it at the time and didn't know what kind of whole feeling was, and had this whole kind of experience to it. And he still very much struggles with the fact that now he feels that he has to be hyper aware of every moving part and hypersensitive of if somebody comes and asks him for something. And so now he's so dialed to 15 that he's caused a lot of his own health problems now because he's so stressed and so worried and so overly emotional because of one thing that happened and he didn't know how to handle it. And it's hard for this, for him, but then it's even harder to have to come to your child and say, how am I supposed to do with this? He can't talk to my mother about it. He can't really talk to a lot of people. And they've offered counseling for him at work and they've offered guidance and stuff. But he's like, these people don't understand me to understand why I feel this way. And there's so much of that we have to really think through these elements that not everybody's going to have the correct answer. Not everybody's going to have the right answers. And in the male older generation, it is hard to understand and put a word to that. So then when you have to go out and say something, you don't know the word that is correct to put to it. Because the stereotype of depression or stress, because you're supposed to be the male figure of the household. So being able then to connect that's not me. I'm not that bad. I'm not that person. And that's where it starts to really kind of build. And I think we have to think through more of the elements that at the core of it, we can't always be right, but we can still be one progression every single day, as minuscule as possible, to define what it actually means to put the word in use for everybody around us to get it.
I'm sorry, that's.
But that's why we, just start unpacking it the tiniest bit, right? Every little bit is Mom, thanks again for hosting us, and thank you AFSP. Thank you ProA.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
I'm happy to host. I'd love to. I'm happy to open the room and order lunch and have folks in. It's really, really important. So yeah, no, we just really like
You're the firm that comes out when I say, I got a crazy idea.
Don, are we still on?
Yes.
Thanks everyone for listening. Get the video uploaded today.